Hello and welcome back to TFR eSports F3 round 3 here in Singapore. Been a bit of a disrupted F3 stream here, but this will be re-uploaded onto YouTube in full HD conditions. But we are about to get underway here in Singapore. We've got Ledanes on pole position for Williams, taking his first ever pole in TFR eSports. It's just the setups and strategies that are just getting sorted at the last moment here. And then we'll dive straight into this 35% distance race. And I am your commentator, CJH. So if you're watching this live, it'll be on Twitch. But if you're watching a re-upload of this on YouTube later on, then be sure to put some comments in on the video. Here we go then. Here come the lights ahead of the drivers here in Singapore. And we are underway. Ledanes then gets a good start alongside Alfie going into the first corner. But it is indeed Ledanes who leads the way then. Alfie in second, Scones third, Ollie Bean in fourth, and Vera in fifth place in the Alpine. Let's see what the tyres are then. We've got all of them on mediums. Raheem is the only driver on the hard tyres in this challenging race here at Singapore. We've had a car have a moment in the background. That is Sci-Fi Mega Hype going off there and being able to resume though, and he's still with the pack, which is good to see. A couple of position swaps up the front, and there is a car in the wall. That is Veer. He's actually avoided the wall. He's managed to just about get it back onto the circuit without hitting the barrier there, but he was incredibly lucky not to smash straight into the barrier there and have to retire the car. He gets going once more, but is now down into 7th place, and he's got the McLaren right on his outside. Make that 6th. Back up into 6th then, with an important move to stay ahead of Raheem for P6. So Veer then with an eventful opening lap here. And meanwhile out front, Alfie is putting the pressure on Ledanes. It's fairly close between these two out front, and Alfie will have to be fairly patient in this race. There is quite a few DRS zones where you can make an overtake. We've got a car in the wall. That is Vertex on his debut tonight, and Veer is back up into 5th. So great recovery in that sector there from Veer. Ahead now of Ellis for P5. So good recovery from him. Vertex then with the damage on the front wing, down in 12th place. A long old recovery for him. And well, let's see what he can do on probably a set of hard tyres all the way to the checkered flag. But Vertex actually also gets a 10-second time penalty, spinning in the pits. But look at Alfie here, close and hot on the tail of Ledane here for the lead, and he is going to go to the inside on the Williams, and it's job done. Although the Williams is hanging it around the outside, gets a little bit wide, but doesn't go too much over the curb, and I have the inside line for the next corner. Ledanes is trying to hang this on here, and I think they're both almost going to hit the barrier. They both get away with it, and Alfie is going to still have the inside line for the next corner. Watch out, because Scones is right there ready to pick up the pieces. They are still wheel to wheel between these pair, and Alfie in the end concedes position as Scones goes very wide in the background, but Ledanes is absolutely having to hang on like you wouldn't believe here. We've got a car off. That's Action Rick, the other Williams, now down in 11th place, getting into all sorts of trouble there. But like I say, Ledanes really doing all he could there to hang on to that lead, and he is going after his first ever victory here in TFR eSports, and he will be absolutely determined to maintain that position in these early stages. Like I say, it's a 35% distance race tonight. Wasn't supposed to be, but that is what it is, and that does mean it is an extra long one here in Singapore. We've got another overtake going on there. That is Sci-Fi Mega Hype now ahead of Northie for P9, as he gets a penalty as well for cutting that final corner. But I'm just trying to get the stream out as quick as I can for you all to view this, as United in the Mercedes, the rookie today, making that move, I think, on Raheem there for P7. We've got Northie ahead now of Sci-Fi as well. So, and a 10-second time penalty for gaining a position from corner cutting for United. So not entirely sure what has happened there, and a bit of a bizarre incident to happen, especially at a track like this where there's not particularly too many corners you can actually overtake. But we move on, and Ledain's still here is struggling to get the gap over Alfie. It seems as though he had the pace for pole. It was a bit of rain at the end of qualifying as well, which would have meant that it was a bit of a one-shot quali. But Ledain's here is, like I say, still leading, but is unable to break that DRS to Alfie. And with Scones lurking in the background, and also Ollie Bean, and also Ver is starting to catch up to this pack here. They're very quickly starting to form a bit of a five-way scrap at the front. And Scones now sets the fastest lap of the race, so he shows that he's got quite a bit of pace to play with at this stage of the race. And like I say, these mediums, they should do at least a good, roughly about lap 12, I think we're aiming at, in terms of how long they will last until. And then it'll be the choice. Do you go for a set of hard tyres to the finish, or do you stretch out these mediums and maybe gamble on a set of softs? Softs are very fragile around this track, and Ledain's there getting very wide once again through that corner. And look at that, Scones there now really putting the pressure on Alfie. Oh no, look now around the outside, and he might just get it done, you know, and he has got the move done on Alfie. Alfie with a poor couple of corners there, and he's got absolutely mugged there right around the outside. Scones up into second place again, very close to the barrier, but Scones will be hunting down Ledain's. He's got a bit of a breather now, Ledain's, because he's got that second plus gap, and so he will be able to then just break the DRS momentarily and try and get down the road and create a bit of a gap to this pack behind them, because at the minute Ledain's has had a bit of a tough race so far in terms of the pressure that he's been receiving, but not as tough as Alfie. Alfie making that mistake after seemingly being all over the tail of Ledain's. He's now got a lot of work to do. He's just got to recompose himself, go again, and hunt down after Scones for that second place, and then Ledain's in front of him. But lap 5 then of 22, a fairly calmish start to the race, you'd have to say. And as Ellis now is another driver to pick up a time penalty. Yeah, there's a big gap between Ver and United from 5th to 6th. That is rather large, that gap between those two drivers. And that'll be the pocket of space that some of these leaders will be looking at later on, as I think Ledain's just clattered the barrier there. I heard an almighty whack, and I think that might have been him hitting the wall. And you don't want to do that too many times, particularly with sim damage. If you do hit the barriers, it does mean the tyres will either puncture or it'll go up by 10% each time in terms of wear. And obviously, if you want to be stretching these tyres quite a bit in this 35% distance race, you need to have as much percentage in hand as you can possibly get. But the top three are all within DRS of each other, with then Ollie Bean a little bit further back now, and Ver now really closing in, reeling in that McLaren, and will surely have DRS. He'll have DRS actually by the next detection point, because he is all over the tail of that McLaren now. Ollie Bean maybe just getting a little bit dropped from the front runners here, and he's going to have his mirrors full of the flying Ver, who has impressed a lot so far. He's not quite picked up that win yet, but he is very much going to be a star of the future, that is for sure. Obviously, we had Varga, who won in the F3 division last week. He is now moved up into the F2 division, and he's staying at Mercedes though. And there is a bit of wheel banging there with Ollie Bean and Ver, as Ver now chucks it down the inside. Ollie Bean is trying to hang it on as much as he can. They're both off the track there. Dramatic stuff there between these two. And Ollie Bean does make contact. They both, well, he hits the wall. Ver there, the Alpine does. But Ollie Bean, I think, has had a bit of a whack himself. He seemed to lose traction from the rear there and went kind of pirouetting around. Let's have a look at Ver's car. If we get a better camera angle, there is Ollie Bean's car. No damage on that McLaren, but Ver, I'm not quite sure if that is the same case for him. Like I say, we're waiting on a better camera angle, before we can actually see. There we go. It's the front left end plate. So damage on the Alpine then on the front left. And that is going to mean a long old stint for Veer unless he pits early here. And, well, dramatic stuff between those two. It was a bit punchy, and Ollie Bean was quite aggressive in his defence, trying to maintain the position. In the end, they both paid the price, but Veer has got the position. And the price he's paid is a bit of damage on the front wing. Ollie Bean has lost a lot of time, though. A good 7 seconds or so from this front pack. And he'll now have to think about United closing in on him at this point of the race. Meanwhile, out front, Scones now has caught up to Ledanes and has DRS on the race leader. Might have a little look to the inside. He is having a little look to the inside, and it's an easy pass. Ledanes almost lets him go. He's going to hang it around the outside. You could see he was charging the battery down that straight, and he maybe just charged it a little bit too much because the Aston Martin has caught him napping, and Scones now leads the Singapore Grand Prix of the F3 division. We're just before roughly the halfway point of this race. So, well, let's just see then what he can do now. Can he extend that gap out front? Let me know in the chat what you're thinking of the race so far, what are your predictions as well for the final podium. At the minute, this one is a little bit up for grabs. I'm not too sure how this one is going to fare. Quite a few comments on the stream. B29 saying go on Scones, and Vish pit lap 9, limits damage with 1 lap undercut. So actually maybe I was a little bit wrong with what I was saying in terms of when to pit with the mediums. Maybe it's a little bit earlier than that. We'll find out what people decide to do. Oh, and Scones has lost it at the final corner. He's going to hit the barrier, and he will surely have damage from that. The tyres clearly getting too hot there, and has completely dropped it and hit the wall, and it is damage on the front left end plate. He's almost kind of lucky that he didn't retire from the session there, because that was a hefty old whack into the barrier. But Scones now is the next driver to make a mistake around these tricky streets of Singapore. And, well, down into third, he'll have Veer closing in with his damaged front wing. He's dropped Ollie Bean by an absolute chunk of time. But Scones then, what a mistake to make just after taking the lead for the first time in his TFR eSports career. And, well, work to be done for him then, with now Ledanes back into lead, but clearly struggling on those mediums and sliding around a lot there. You can see with the recharge on as well, the rear light flashing. Alfie's getting dropped a little bit as well, about 2 seconds or so behind Ledanes at this point of the race. And, well, let's see what will happen now. Will Scones just carry on, try and stretch out those mediums, or will he, like his fellow Aston Martin driver from the F1 division, B29, will he listen to him and dive in the pits now or in a few laps' time? We'll find out. But he doesn't seem to have too bad pace as Alfie's coming in the pits. Now that is early, considering he has no damage on the car, right over the white line and onto the curb. Gets it slowed down nicely though. And we'll see what tyre he goes on here, because he is a little bit early to get into the pits here. Well, in my eyes, a little bit early. And hard tyres obviously go on the car. So he's going to come out the pits then in a little pocket of space behind Action Rick. And so then he'll have a few seconds, particularly an outlap, and that is for sure, to get his foot down, get those hard tyres up to temperature, and see what inroads he can do as he hits the barrier on the exit there, the cold hard tyres, and he hits the wall immediately. And, well, again, not what you need to do. Not what you need to do. With brand new tyres, and you've already gotten damage. There's Ellis down the inside on Raheem, and he has that move done. Up into 6th place. He's obviously got a few penalties at the moment, but he's picked off Raheem there. And now he is in a little bit of a thing of his own right now, because there's a good 8.5 seconds or so to this man here, United, who is right on the tail of Ollie Bean here with DRS. Pulls to the inside, did a little switch there at the last minute, and that is an easy move and a great move. But look at Ollie Bean then on the exit. The Mercedes sliding around, just trying to get the power down. But Ollie Bean then, hits the wall on the exit as well on that barrier. Just that little slight left on the straight, but United keeps the position just about. Ollie Bean defending for all he could, and Scones is in the pit lane. So that is the next driver then into the pits, and he's pulled in by Ollie Bean just behind him. Not surprised by that. And hard tires also go on to the car, and Ollie Bean as well, I think, is gone for hard. It's a change of front wing then for Scones, so he is changing the front wing, and he's back out ahead of the McLaren. And Alfie then is quite significantly ahead, but he's in traffic here. He's in traffic behind Action Rick, trying to find a way past the Williams. The Williams doing his teammate a big favour here, trying to keep ahead of the Haas, but the Haas is going to swoop right around the outside and gets that move done and dusted. But Scones then, with that front wing change, is a good 11 seconds behind Alfie. So a massive amount of time lost because of the damage on the car. And unless he can find some serious pace on that set of boots, he's got a long race ahead of him if he wants to get back up in contention of winning this race. He was definitely in contention earlier on, but that slide at the final corner a few laps ago is proven to be incredibly costly here. But Scones then out the pits in P8 and has a lot of time until he comes across the next car. But Alfie, he'll be the one to keep an eye on here, because it just depends. What is Ledane's planning here? He is out on to another lap 11 now, halfway through the race. Veer is in the pits, so he's getting rid of his medium tyres. But is Ledane's just stretching out those mediums to potentially go on softs later? I mean, that would be a pretty major gamble. Are we going to see a change of front wing? Yes, we are. So Veer also changing the front wing. We'll see where he comes out of the pits by the time he gets that all changed and fixed. Feels like the longest pit stop ever. Rick dives in the pits just behind. This could be a little bit of a tight one. We got Veer then coming down the pits, and he will come out behind these two. He will come out behind Ollie Bean and Scones. So Veer will have to do it all over again on Ollie Bean. But a podium is definitely still up for grabs for Veer, but in terms of anything more than that, that is potentially in the bin for now. Meanwhile, up the order, Alfie then, now within 2 seconds of these two. That could be the other thing that Ledanes is thinking here. Can I stretch these tyres to the point where Alfie's going to get in a bit of traffic and it'll damage his tyres and cost him a bit of time, and then I can get those soft tyres on later in the race. He still needs to go quite a few more laps if he wants to go for the softs, but it's an interesting strategy from Ledanes here. A bit of a gamble considering he's leading the race, and if he came in at the end of this lap, then I'm not too sure this gamble will work. And I think he is. He is coming in to the pit lane. Ledanes is coming in then, gets the car slowed down, and that will be the hard tyre. Surely, there goes Alfie then. Oh, absolutely sideways down the straight, hits the barrier, and I think that will be damaged as well. Incredible stuff. He's got away with it somehow. He's a lucky boy not to get damage from that, because he absolutely clattered the barrier there. It's timed beautifully for him with Raheem diving the pits. He's got a penalty though for exceeding the track limits, but he will be ahead of Ledanes then by a little bit, not as much as I potentially thought. So he's gained track position, but he's hit the barrier and is lucky to be in the race. And then immediately after that, almost in shock, he's gone and picked himself a time penalty. So the gap is about 2.6. You'd imagine that'll go up a tiny bit as well, because of these the warm-up for Ledanes. But look at the traffic, and there goes Ellis off the circuit there as well, making a little bit of a mistake there. Opens the door for Alfie, but Ellis on those old medium tyres, he could also now be a bit of a cork in the bottle for Ledanes on this lap, if Ledanes gets his tyres up to temperature. But meanwhile, further behind, Ollie Bean right on the tail of Scones. We've got Veer as well, closing in on those two, you'd imagine, once his tyres get up to temperature. So it's a bit of a freeway scrap for the final podium spot, because that gap now is 7.5 seconds to Ledanes. They are very much out of contention of winning this race unless we see a late safety car in this one. We've also got a bit of a tasty battle for P7 with United on a penalty, and Sci-Fi and Raheem now closing up to him. So something to keep an eye out there. And Ledanes is still stuck behind Ellis here. Ellis doing Alfie wonders, and he's staying out as well. So Ledanes, for the sake of his race and making this as easy as it can be for him, needs to make this move on the RB very, very soon, because that's another straight there. He's stuck behind this RB on old medium tyres, and he is just losing chunks of time. Ollie Bean sets the fastest lap of the race, and he is right on the tail of Scones. We'll have to keep an eye on that as well. But Ledanes here, can he get a good exit, get past that RB? He will absolutely do that down this straight. It's an easy pass for the Williams, and he needed to do that because he's lost a good second or so in that time of being stuck behind him. Ollie Bean not quite close enough down that straight, and he'll know he'll need to get that move done. Scones fairly quickly because of the penalty that he's carrying in this one. But Ledanes then, surely you would imagine if he gets his foot down here and keeps good consistent pace, he should be able to just stay within range of Alfie. But the problem is, because he's lost track position, he might have fresher tyres. He's just got to make sure he keeps that gap below 3 seconds. It means that himself and Alfie are going to be pushing hard all the way to the line here to say who's going to win this race. Because also it doesn't mean that Ledanes won't pick up a penalty himself. Scones now sets a purple mill sector, so he as well is on a bit of a flyer here and really getting his foot down, as that gap to Ledanes up the road is started to come down quite a bit now. So this might not be over just yet for some of these guys. Maybe for the win, that's kind of out of the picture. But Scones has got great pace and doesn't quite set the fastest lap. But him and Ollie Bean here are ticking away quite nicely. And he's going to catch Ellis very, very quickly here. Ellis still staying out there on that medium tyre that he started the race on. And he's really getting his money's worth out of that set of boots, because he is now onto lap 14 on those, and you can imagine they are seriously going to start wearing out. Be sure to put in your thoughts on the chat if you're watching on stream. This is obviously my own personal stream page, so I can't say that it'll all stay there because Twitch for some reason doesn't keep the streams like this. Luca, I'm going to say that is Schaefer from F2, saying that his were like 80% the soft tires. I'm not too sure what that means, but yes, quite a few people saying they could have put it in lap 8. Here is Scones then on Ellis now with the DRS wide open, trying to pick away past the RB. Gets very late on the brakes, and he probably didn't mean to make that move there and then, but just the sheer lack of grip for the RB allowed the Aston Martin to breeze past. Can Ollie Bean do the same as well? I think he will, but it's a bit of a drag race between the two into this next corner, and he is passed. So not too much harm done for these two in their pursuit back after the front runners. Ledanes then has got that gap now. 3 seconds on his out. Ellis in the pits, it is indeed. So he is in the pits. Soft tyre, surely? We'll find out. We'll keep an eye on Ollie Bean, close to Scones further up the road. It is indeed soft tyres, that's good to see. Bit of a different strategy then going on there. We've got Raheem then on those mediums, who'll be going along quite nicely. He could close up to United potentially in the final stages here. Ellis then comes out right the way down in 11th place, but on a fresh set of soft tyres, so he could have a bit of fun in these final remaining laps. Could definitely work his way back inside the top 10. Ollie Bean then close still with Scones. These guys have started to tail off a little bit in terms of the pace that they had a lap or so ago, because that gap to Ledanes is just going up now, so Ledanes has got himself sorted. Now he's cleared that struggling RB, and he is starting to close that gap back up to Alfie. And the thing is now is it's just minimalising any mistake and just bringing it home, because that penalty around a place like this is all you need. You don't need to make that overtake. Similar to Monaco, you can just sit behind that car and bring it home and win this Singapore Grand Prix. But this fight for third is still raging on, because Ollie Bean still needs to get past this Aston Martin here for third place. The Veer just behind him is still there, although he's not really been able to close up to these two drivers and is really kind of tailed off in his terms of pace here. And oh yes, Luca does indeed point out that he is F1 now, and that is very true. I do apologise, Schaefer. Well and truly the F1 division now, obviously F2 division last season. But lap 16 then, 22. There's a few gaps throughout the field. It's been one of the more calmer Singapore GPs. Let's say that, and of course that has happened when I am kind of on my own doing these comms. But it is what it is, and we're getting towards the end of this one. Ollie been there again, having a bad couple of corners there, and really struggling to kind of get it slowed down. He's lost a bit of time to Scones, and Veer now is back within range and hunting him down for that fourth place. And for anyone watching concerned with the F2 division, that race is probably going to be delayed by about 10 to 15 minutes for tonight, just because this race was supposed to be 25%, but just slight teething issues. We'll have it sorted for next week in Dakota, and yes, F2 will be slightly delayed tonight. Let's have a look at this little scrap here for P11. We've got Ellis on a fresh set of soft tyres. We've got Action Rick on a 5-lap old set of mediums, and he's not on, well, he's still got the tyres on, that's for sure, but he's hit the barrier, and a big old spin there for him, and damage on the front left and right end plates, and well, dramatic. But there he goes, right around the outside, and he's off the track. Now that could be controversial, shooting across the circuit like that just to maintain the position. Ollie Bean is really struggling all of a sudden with the tyre temps on that car. He's sliding all over the place, and he is now down into 5th place. Had the penalty anyway, but another position change, and Ledane's there having a funny old slide there through the apex of the corner, losing a little bit of time to Alfie. He doesn't want to get too close to Alfie here, because Alfie, well, he's obviously tailed off in terms of his pace, but he's kind of had to just accept here, I can't get the gap of 3 seconds to Ledane, so I've got to maybe force him into getting a penalty himself in these closing stages, and that is the only way that's going to change the outcome of this one, because Ledanes is driving a super little race here, just keeping patient and sitting right behind that man in the Haas, and is doing all he needs to do to become a race winner in TFR eSports. Alfie a little bit wide again. Ledanes with a much better exit. Seeing this difference in the tyres here. Ledanes has a little look to the inside. You don't want to try something risky like that. If you're going to make the move, get it done with a nice bit of DRS down the straight. You've got a lapped car actually a little bit in the mix with these guys as well. So that could be something that could put off Ledanes slightly. Just when you're looking into the eye of the corner, trying to get your braking right. Look how much more speed that Red Bull had there through the corner. That just shows the difference what a fresh set of tyres does. But he is now right in between these two. He'll be getting the yellow, the blue flags waved at him, but he is within his right to unlap himself on that set of soft tyres. But that is just the worst possible part of the track, that you want a ghost car right in your eye view. And well, Ledanes is still there with Alfie, but Alfie himself has actually got a bit of DRS now, so that protects him from losing any position there. The Red Bull still is not quite able to get clear, and he's actually had to give up the position once again. And he is doing the same for Scones. He doesn't want to get that penalty. But the problem is, he's still there. So he's going to just try and unlap himself for the next lap. So, well, yes, I'm not too sure really what he can do. I mean, he might just catch up to them again and unlap himself, but that is not going to be helpful at all for these leaders. They've got a really comfy gap to Scones, although Alfie with that penalty has to keep his pace up here, because all it would need is for Scones to shave 2.5 seconds off that gap, and then he will be in a bit of trouble for his second place. But the Danes here doing what he needs to do. And there goes the Red Bull again. So there is the Red Bull unlapping himself so much quicker in these corners. But the other side of the coin here is if he hits the barrier or something as well and gets damaged, and a bit of end plate flicks up on the circuit, that can puncture these guys. I'm pretty sure it would. I'm not too entirely sure how the whole ghosting system works. I'm pretty sure if he did get some damage here by unlapping himself, that would be also another major risk to these drivers. I mean, I myself have, at the season 24 last season's Singapore GP, picked up damage off another car's end plate flicking up right before the pits, actually, thankfully, so I didn't have to do another lap. But if there's this track and Baku and Saudi, they're all circuits you do not want to get a puncture at. So that's just something that might go through their minds here, and they might be slightly worried in these closing stages of the potential of that. But Ledane seems to have this under control, and Alfie's pace has really tailed off here. He is on the oldest set of hard tyres on the circuit now, up to 11 laps, and Scones is seriously closing in. Vera's got a 3-second time penalty as well, so that puts his podium pursuit into a bit of jeopardy. But this man here, Ledanes, is looking all good for the win at the moment. And another little thing for the F2 people that are going to have third division straight after this, that should work on the stream, hopefully, for that race. I don't see why it wouldn't on YouTube, but if not, then hang around and stay here on my Twitch page, because I will be re-uploading the race onto there. So at least there will be a stream of some form as I receive the invite for that session. So that will be coming up straight after this, but all eyes still on the F3 division, because we've got about 2.5 laps to go here, and Ledanes has got this under control. Scones is catching this pair. He won't catch enough, but he might catch enough to jump ahead of Alfie if Alfie doesn't get his foot down. Alfie is benefiting massively, though, from the DRS off that lap car. That lap car, I mean, he's got a bit more of a gap, because he's probably still getting the blue flags waved at him. I can't see. Yeah, there it is. There is a blue flag. So, for the sake of him not wanting penalties, I mean, to be honest, if you're last at this point in the race, do you care? You're 45 seconds off the pace because of what's gone on in this race so far. Do you care if you get a penalty? He's going to get out of the way, though, again. So, he gets out of the way, but he is obviously still, again, will try and unlap himself, although his tyres, I think, will start to go off. Ollie Bean gets another time penalty. He is now up to 9 seconds, but he's all good in 5th place. He's got a big gap to United in 6th, who has a big gap to Raheem in 7th. Raheem is not quite at the pace I thought he would have in this one. Cypher Mega Hype maybe within range to close in on him. But apart from that, this is the closest gap of the track, as Ledanes makes a mistake there, surprisingly, going a bit wide. And just when you think he is all under control, a little error there, just when he doesn't need it. But he should be okay. He should be fine to just bring it home, and he should have the victory here. But well, penultimate lap, and we've got a yellow flag. What has happened there? That is Ellis. He's hit the barrier in the closing stages. So a couple of points maybe disappearing away for him and RB. And Action Rick there is gonna, well, he will get the position because he's got penalties. So Ellis with a mistake right at the end of this one with those old soft tyres. We're about to start the final lap here. Alfie has been in control all the way from the last pit stop. But the problem for him is he's got a penalty. So Ladanes has not even needed to think about making a move. He might just make a move for the hell of it, just to get the win on track. Let's see how bold he is. And Kovac says it's 12 people, everyone will score. That is a very good point. Everyone will score points here, but they will lose points if they drop any more positions. And I think Action Rick will indeed pick up that position. Ladanes no, B29 says. He's trying to bring it home. I mean, Scones is right there. Scones is still right there to pick up the position of Alfie here. Look at that. We've got 6 tenths in this here on the final lap. Scones has managed to just claw that gap back. I mean, he's right there. And, well, seemingly be miles away for a good chunk of this race. He is right there. And now he has got a bit of traffic as that Red Bull has been caught, so he'll be getting out of the way shortly. But Alfie needs to stay switched on here on this final lap. He's probably not going to win this race because Ladanes seems unflappable in terms of getting any penalties here. But that man has to have a good final sector here because that's only 2 tenths. That is a 2-tenth gap, a 1/10 gap. Now, there goes Ladanes right down the inside. That is a gamble and a half when you're going to win the race anyway. That was bold. Some would say almost crazy. But he's going to lose the position for Alfie in second place. Ladanes wants the win here outright on the track. He's not going to get it, but he's going to cost Alfie second place, which Alfie, I'm sure, will be absolutely livid about that. But Alfie is going to win then on track here in F3. But it is Ladanes who picks up his first ever victory here in TFR eSports. Scones then picks up second place ahead of Alfie because of that dramatic last lap there where Ladanes just decided to chuck it down the inside from nowhere. And Veer comes home in 4th. Maybe he will be disappointed with that, but it's still good points in the bag. Ollie Bean, despite a challenging race there, picks up a 5th place, which you can have to say he'll be pleased with that in terms of just points on the board. United on his debut comes home in 6th. Raheem then couldn't quite get those minions to work in 7th. We've then got Sci-Fi Mega Hype in 8th. And then we've got 2 RBs in 9th and 10th, but Action Rick is going to pick up that top 10 spot with the damaged car. We've got Vertex, who's already finished because he was a lap down in 12th. But Action Rick then will indeed pick up this 10th spot ahead of LS. And that is your lot then for the F3 Singapore GP. Maybe not quite as dramatic as the Japanese and Australian Grand Prix, that's for sure. But it was still an interesting race, that is for sure, and the results indeed will be something to take from it as well, because Ladanes has finally got that win, and I have to say it didn't really look like he was going to get that win earlier in the season, but or shall I say the first 2 rounds, but he has indeed got it. Obviously hadn't had a podium all season so far, but he has won now here in Singapore, and what a result for him and that Williams team. That is your driver of the day and stuff on the thing there. Alfie getting driver of the day, that is an interesting one. Not quite sure how that works. Ollie Bean getting the fastest lap, cleanest driver being Scones. But there are your final results on the screen. We're going to dash off for the F2 lobby in just a moment, but we'll give this the time of the day because Ladanes is a race winner. He converted his pole position into a victory. Scones picks up a late second place there after that penalty for Alfie, costing him when he won on track, but it was the penalty that proved costly in a close battle then between all those drivers. But an entertaining race. And we'll find out next week what is going to happen here in F3, because it's going to be very close, this championship. Now Varga is moved up into F2. I'm not too sure who is going to really be the favourite for this season. But if you have enjoyed this stream, make sure you give the channel a subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it. We're dashing off for F2 now, and we'll see you then.